All right, welcome back to episode 31 of the Precious Metal Gents podcast. I'm Zan here with Brian. Hope everyone listening had a great Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year. Brian, did you get some time off during our respite from the PMG podcast?
Yeah, I spent some time with family. Had to spend a lot of my time off cleaning up, and I'm working on refinishing our basement and building a bar area down there. So I've been working with doing that type of stuff, construction around the house, and just really just spending some time at home with my daughter. I've had to watch her while my better half works. She wasn't off as much as I am working in a school system. You get off obviously for breaks. So it was relaxing, spent some time with the family, kind of got away from cards a little bit. Lots of sports on TV. So had like, if you're into fantasy football, like the fantasy football playoffs and all that. So just a really relaxing time. I'm not looking forward to going back to work tomorrow, unfortunately. But we got to make money for those cards, right?
That's right. Yep, I'm working tomorrow as well. But this is a good segue because I think everybody probably experiences a little bit of like not disinterest necessarily in cards, but you take a bit of a break because you got family and you've got Christmas, especially if you have kids or you have family over, your focus is shifted. So now it's time to buckle down, get back to the cards. We've got a long year ahead of us, and we're going to talk about some resolutions later on, as well as just review our 2024 resolutions and see whether any of those came to fruition or we fulfilled all our desires for the year. But first, mail day. I have a few. I don't have them on me right now. They're upstairs. But first one was the biggest one, Greg Maddox, 98, Super Rave. I had, this one's on my page, so if you want to see it, you can check it out there. I had really wanted to find a Greg Maddox card. Just one is probably fine. I had, for a couple of months, had considered a Red Crusade that was kind of sitting, and I had talked to the owner of it, and then we'd even talked about price, but I just didn't pull the trigger. And then I got the grand finale, and it just didn't. It didn't really do it for me. And since I love Super Raves, this one was on auction. I was kind of just almost tuning in to see how high it would go, and I thought it ended at a pretty reasonable price considering what some other Maddox cards and other cards in that particular set go for. So that's really been my one, I guess, if you want to call it bigger buy during the consolidation phase. In addition to that, I got some Brian Giles cards, one of which was the 99 Essential Credentials Now, number to 75. Thank you to Pat, Insta account haver, for sending that over. He's very generous. He sent Brian a nice Gallardo, sent me a good 2 or 3 cards now. Very, very generous. And so that one I posted. It's nice to complete that pairing. And then I also ended up getting all 3 of his 99 legacies. So rows 1 through 3. There's no 0 that year. But that's fun because I could get all 3 of those for, I think the total for all 3 was like $28 or something like that. So it's kind of fun when you can get a full run of that year. He doesn't have 98. So, yeah, but that's pretty much it for me. Trying to enjoy some of the lower end stuff while I'm doing this consolidation. It looks like you picked up a couple new ones. What did you get?
One of them was actually, it wasn't. Neither of these were planned, I guess, but this one just popped up on a story sale from Montana Collector. I think that's the name on Instagram, right? Joe Montana Collector.
Joe Montana, yeah.
Yeah, he posted a story sale. I was in the middle of shopping for Christmas stuff, and I was about to the checkout counter, and someone just sent me this story, and I could tell it was going to go fast. So he had a bunch of.
You dropped everything. You just threw everything on the ground.
I actually, surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, but no joke, I backed out of the line at the grocery store and kind of moved to the corner
priorities.
I moved to the corner of an aisle so I wasn't blocking anybody, and went on my phone and I was watching this story because it was posted as a story, and you had to like just look carefully because there was like probably 15 cards. It just said like Favre sale or something like that, and there was a lot of gold on there. There's a lot of like the 99 finest gold. Um, there was some other stuff, a lot of numbered stuff, and then this Favre was on there, the 1998 playoff prestige gold, hobby gold Favre. It's out of 25, and if you're not familiar with the set, I posted this on the Instagram already, but um, can't really, it doesn't do it justice here, but it's an all foil gold background, kind of a refractor foil finish. They're out of 25 and they're extremely hard to keep clean. So usually when you find these things, they're in like 4 or 5 PSA 4, 5, 6 condition at best. They're pretty beat up. The foil obviously gets chipped to hell, but to get one in a 9 of any player is really really tough. And then to be of a Favre, this is obviously a pop one. I think there's only 2 graded. There might be 1 grade in another. Oh no, there's not. I think this is there's only 2. One of them I think is a 6. So um, really tough card to get. I messaged Mike right away, Montana Collector. I was like, hey, I'm at the grocery store. I'm driving. Like, can you just don't sell it until like we can discuss prices? So like if someone messages you with a really good offer, just at least don't sell it until we can talk. He's like, yeah, it's fine. So then I got home, went back and forth. He wasn't really budging much on a price, which I understand because there's nothing to really compare it with. I think we used like a Steve Young comp or something from last year. So they don't sell much. They're out of 25. They're rare. They're maybe, I guess you could say, underappreciate a little bit compared to like other cards that are out of 25. I knew about them because I see them every once in a while. And if you don't know the set, there's a red one. There's obviously the base one. If you don't know the SSD set, there was hobby and retail. So the retail, I think, were the reds. I think they're unnumbered. I think there's another color in there too. There might be, but the golds came in the hobby boxes, and they're out of 25. But most likely, with this set, I don't know if there's really like 25 of each player in circulation. If you look at the pop reports of each one, there's not that many graded, and I can't imagine that there's just a ton floating around out there. Like I think if you pull up the pop reports, there's probably like, other than the Manning, which seems to be everything in 98. People saw Manning and they just held the cards. But like the other players, there's like maybe like 2, 3 graded. There's just not much. So I highly doubt there's like 20 just sitting around commons boxes of each player. So they're tough to find in general, but they're beautiful cards. If you like foil, which I do, it checks all the boxes for me.
Real quick on that, yeah. If you see one at a show, make sure you do check the back. There's a lot of
Mm.
backdoor ones. I saw at the 2022 national, no, 2023 national. There was a table that had like tons and tons of them, but they were all unstamped. So just if you're out there and you see one, just make sure it's stamped.
I forgot to mention that if you go on eBay, you can find a lot of unstamped ones. Some in the listing will say like missing serial number. Some you just got to be careful, like they're trying to sell the card and
Right.
deceive the buyer, as eBayers usually do. All right, the next one was another unexpected purchase. Fortunately and unfortunately, I'm in a Instagram group with a number of collectors that we look at one-on-ones. And I say unfortunately because I have a lot of people messaging me like, "Oh, look at this card, this 101," and it doesn't take much persuading to buy these things, especially when they're for a good price. So one of my friends on there, Travis Big Face Cards, great guy. If you haven't messaged him, he's got an insane Prism Black Finite collection, football collection. He's got just a ton of great players from all years of finites, and he seems to just kick up a lot of these 101s. And he found this thing in a guy he was doing a trade with, messaged me and said, hey, he's selling this. If you're interested, I don't know if you collect these, but it's a 2020 Contenders Super Bowl ticket 101. Rodgers is the base card. I can't really see the refractor shine. But what's cool about these is on the Super Bowl tickets, it's a non-chrome card and it's got a nice refractor finish. I've always thought the Contenders were cool. I just never really collected them much. The only Contenders that I really cared about was the Warner, the 99, but I never picked up anybody else. So The price point was good. I'm trying to get. It's kind of outside of what I have on my list for Rogers, but to add this now, I'm a completionist at heart, so it's like now I got to go out and get all the contenders Super Bowl tickets of his. So I'll as they come about, maybe I'll pick them up. I know there's one sitting on eBay for a really high price, but way more than I paid for this. But the price point's pretty good. I think they're cool. Contenders is a pretty consistent brand. It carried on through the Panini era too. So I think they're kind of cool to have. If I could somehow put together the complete, Contenders Super Bowl ticket run of Rodgers, I think it would be pretty significant. I think he's got like one that's maybe the 2012. And again, I don't know much about these. So the 2012, I think, was like champ ticket. So it might have been a championship ticket, but then all the rest are Super Bowl tickets. I'm sure if someone's listening, they can maybe correct me, but they're all still 101. So I'm just looking for the base set 101s.
That's a good haul. That's a nice modern pickup, kind of off the beaten path a little bit for you. And the Prestige was one that kind of just crept up on you, probably one you weren't actively searching for, mainly because they don't pop up that often. Let's do card of the week. We're going to stick with Packers theme here. 1997 Precious Metal Gems Red Reggie White sold for $8,100 this past week on Fanatics Collect Weekly. You might be wondering why it's so high. It is the jersey numbered copy. So number 92 out of 150. Now, still, even though it is the jersey number copy, that's pretty high for a red, given that there are 135 copies. But when you look at the white sales on the red, it does not come up very much. For instance, like Bruce Smith comes up multiple times a year. You could see him probably every month or two. Reggie White, one hasn't sold since September of 2023, so over a year ago, and that was June of 2023. That was an SGC6 that sold for about $1,300, and you'd have to go back several years for the last PSA copy to sell. The last sale on a Reggie White PMG of any kind, of 97 before this one, was a 97 green BGS6 that sold in September of 2023 for $6,000, which seems like a bit of a discount now. And I forgot to mention that the white jersey number that just sold was a PSA 6, so that was a PSA graded copy. So crazy high price, something that, it's a mix of maybe the jersey number premium as well as the fact that it doesn't come up much, and the fact that it's in a PSA slab gives you, a lot of confidence. So what did you see? I mean, what did you make of this? I know you're in a Packers chat. What did others seem to make of this sale once it went final?
Before I even get into that, I just want to mention something about that SGC6 sale. The funny story
Mm-hmm.
about that was I can't remember if it was either the Facebook Packers collector group that I'm in, or if it was like just a 90s. There's a 90s parallel and inserts collector group that I'm in on Facebook with a lot of other people. I'm sure listen to this are in the same group, but that guy, he found it raw in a collection or something. He didn't know much about those. He posted it in one of those groups and said, "Hey, just found this. I think it was either in his collection or like a friend's or something." He's like, "What do you think the price is? Should I get it graded? Who should I get it graded by?" Was asking all these questions about it. Of course, a million people messaged this guy about this raw copy, including myself. I messaged him like, "Hey, this is what I think you should get it graded here. Yeah, they're pretty valuable. This is generally where I think the price is." I gave him comps, showed him like card ladder comps, and then I made him an offer. I'm like, "Hey, I'll pay you this right now. You don't have to mess with getting it graded." Um, he seemed like he was going back and forth. He waited like a day, messaged me back, was like, "I think I'm just going to send it and get it graded. I think I'm going to go with SGC." I'm like, "Okay, I would go with PSA, but whatever." Because it was cheaper probably or something. I don't know. So he sent it to SGC, got it back. Then he sent me a picture of the card, and I'm like, okay, it got us. Like, I'll offer you this. I upped it like maybe a couple $100. I can't remember what I offered him. I think like 15, 1700 something. I think 1700. I'm like, you'll probably get like around there for it. At the time, that was like, you got to think back like a couple of years ago. The Reds were a lot less than they are right now. Now they're starting to pick up steam again, the PMGs, especially of Reggie. Um, he wanted to go send it to eBay. Sent it to eBay. Obviously, you heard what the price was, $13.25. I should have just, I don't know why I didn't bid on it. I can't remember what I was doing. I should have bought that card. So I kick myself every day for that. Um, anyway, move on to that red. Like, I don't want to shit on anybody's purchase, especially if they bought in, they're listening to this. But like, to me, I don't care about much about jersey numbers. Maybe like I would maybe put like a slight premium on it. You know, if I got like a 4 for a Favre card, okay, kind of cool. Like I'd couple few $100s or something more, or whatever.
Hmm.
But 8,100, like you're paying 2,000 more than a green that sold again in 23. The prices on these PMGs, the 97s, were less than they are now. Like that PMG now, if it hit the market, would be before this 8,100 sale. What would you think that green would be? Probably like 12 to 15,
Hmm. Yes, I
something like
think
that.
so.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So 12 to 15, but like 8,100 for a few $1,000s less than what we think a green would go for now. That seems
it's
like
a lot.
outrageous to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that ratio is way off.
Yeah.
But again, like there are some people who are jersey number collectors. I mean, it just takes a couple of them, I guess, to get into some kind of bidding more for it. But yeah, I mean, that's a good example of a set where, I mean, save your money, and unless jersey number means something to you, chances are, you're going to be way overpaying for the right to own that copy.
It's not even a high
Uh,
grade. It's not like it's like if it was like a PSA 8 or something. There's people that want those in high grades because that kind of distinguishes the 135 copies that are out there.
right.
Like if you can have a high grade PMG set, like for a registry or something, that's different. But like it's a PSA 6. I mean, there's
Yeah.
probably going to be a number of them turned over in the next couple of years that'll grade it like a PSA 6.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, this probably will bring out some reds. So, stay tuned, I guess, if you're interested in getting a red Reggie White, keep your eyes on auctions because I think some will come in. Somebody will see this price and go, wow, I could sell mine for 6 grand, even though it's not jersey numbered or whatever. So, if you're interested, keep your eye out, I guess. Okay. We didn't actually put out a call for listener questions, but I did get a good message from at TYH35735. Mark, he's a listener of our show. He introduced himself, really nice, and actually mentioned that his brother had, I think, got him into the show and he had started back card collecting. His brother is actually Brian, who's Lingua Sports Cards on Instagram, who has an amazing collection. And we've talked about him before. It's a really, really good page if you haven't seen that. But, Mark had a couple of questions that I thought would be good to just kind of answer on the show. One of them is, well, the first one is about supplies, and we don't ever really talk about that, so I thought I would read it. He asked, or well, he said, most of my cards are graded. I'm thinking about not grading some and putting them in binders. What are the best binders and sheets to use? Is it the same as I used 30 years ago?
Well, you can use those if you're gonna just put them in without a top loader because now they make top loader binders, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I would always suggest putting in your cards penny sleeved and then in a binder. As far as specific binders, I like to go with the top loader binder, and I think on Amazon X Pro top loader binders go for about $30, and they often have sales. They hold 252 top loaded cards. Um, they're 9 pockets. They're pretty big, but they zip up. So this is an example one right here. You can see how big it is. But they got a little. They have an inventory thing here too, so you can slide something in there, so you can kind of see what you're looking at when they're all stacked together side by side. They stand up pretty nice in a cabinet, but they're pretty clean. They come with 25 top loaders. Obviously, I don't know if that really matters, but pages are really sturdy, easy to get in and out. They don't rip easily. So I like to put them, if I'm putting in cards that are, especially like chrome stuff, like refractors and that, I like to put them in a top loader. You can just get the regular binders with the 9 pocket sheets and then put a penny sleeve in them. For those, I found the ones that fit the best penny sleeved cards to be the Beckett sheets, the Beckett 9 pocket sheets. If you want to ask like more specific questions and get a ton of information and reviews about binders or sheets, Kyle at Wax Museum Podcast on Instagram he's probably the best one to reach out to. He'll respond to you right away. He's great about sharing information. He's got a ton of videos. If you searched for Kyle, if you just search Wax Museum Podcast, like binder review or something on YouTube, you'll be able to find his information. So I heard about the X Pro binder from him as far as the top loader binders, but he's got a whole rundown of like a million different binders. He could tell you which one to use for whatever you want. If you want like, a small one with like 4 pockets, 6, 9, what you're storing. So, I mean, there's also, you can go as crazy as like slab binders too. So I know those, I don't know
Hmm.
much about those now if they're as popular, but they got binders that'll hold PSA or BGS or SGC slabs in them. Maybe just a PSA right now. I don't know if they got the other ones, but yeah, there's a lot out there. I just do your research, Google, but I can tell you from experience, the X Pro top loader binder that holds 252, the one I shared, you can just search for it on Amazon. It's about $30. That's the best one in my opinion, for top loaded cards.
Yeah, mine are pretty much. I use Ultra Pro brand binders. I know a lot of people use the zip binders that have like the sheets almost like built into it's like the black
That's what
felt
this is.
pages.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So a lot of people use that. And I don't have one. I've think I probably will get one, but typically I use like the 3 ring binders with the Ultra Pro pages. So Mark, probably what you used 30 years ago. Ultra Pro makes really sturdy pages, which I like. My big problem with them though is that the cards tend to slide out the top, or at least like when you open it or you move the binder at all, like it's, maybe like even just like a 1/4 inch out the top, and you just got to keep pushing them back in, which kind of gets annoying. So even though they are sturdy and they're high quality, if that's going to get on your nerves, then probably don't do that, because I think even the ones that don't have the top loader space, but they just have like the kind of the sleeve, attached to the felt, you can slide in from the side, so it's a little less likely to pop out the top, when you're moving it. But like Brian said, check out Kyle's resources, and there's really no wrong way to do it. You can just kind of go to your local hobby shop. Even Target now sells Card Guardian products. Card Guardian's pretty good. They make some of those binders. So it's sort of maybe trial and error to some degree, but doing like just a little research and YouTube for binder reviews and stuff
So
like
did
that
you do you use
might be
one
helpful.
thing about the Ultra Pros? Do you penny sleeve the cards in the Ultra Pro
No,
sheet? Okay, so
no.
I would always go with Ultra Pro too because it was a brand that obviously I use like since I was a kid, and they do make really good sheets. My problem is I have a few, like I think it's the '93 SP football set. I have their foil cards, and if you remember, they're pretty thin, right? So I penny sleeve
Yeah,
those. I put them all in penny sleeves in Ultra Pro sheets, and they wrinkle up. Like they're
yeah.
like a fraction too thin, and they push the penny sleeves so they're all wrinkled. So then I
Mm,
heard that the Beckett ones are just slightly wider, and then those penny sleeves lay flat in there. So especially for like a chrome card,
yeah.
they just sit better in that penny sleeve. So that's the only reason why I went with the Beckett sheets. They just seem to fit better. But the Ultra Pros are really nice. They also make Ultra Pro makes like these. If you don't want to get like the binders like this, where the sheets, the page is already in there, attached to the binder. You can get these top loader sheets from Ultra Pro, but they only hold 4 cards instead
Mm-hmm.
of 9. So it gets really bulky. Like I got some of my brewer stuff in there, my vintage brewer team sets in those, and I'm going to transfer those out into X Pro. Also makes a non-top loader one too. So I think they do, or maybe it's a different brand. Kyle could tell you, but I want to transfer those out of those sheets and put them in something different because they're just super bulky. So you could buy a bunch of those 4 card pages, top loader pages, and they have a fold down flap so it holds it in there, but that card moves around a lot. So I would avoid those. If you're going to get top loader, get this X Pro one. If you're going to get something for penny sleeved, I mean, there's a million different options out there. It just depends on what you're looking for zip or attached pages or whatever. The next one we have on here is again from the same person. Most of my cards are all at Fanatics Vault. I've never heard of either of those using a vault, so I assume your cards are at home. Oh, I never heard of either of you talk about using a vault, so I assume your cards are at home. Is that correct, or could you discuss positive and negatives of both?
Yeah, so I do not currently have any cards at the vault, any vault, that is. I have the only time that I have had cards at the vault are if I win them on eBay, or well, before eBay you couldn't send them to the vault, before eBay and Golden merged. But Golden has always had the opportunity, and PWCC, you could win a card and send it to the vault. I would always do that if I won a card on those sites, and now I tend to do it for higher price cards on eBay because it saves you sales tax. So, for instance, I had a card that I had won on, I can't remember where it was. Oh, it was the Maddox. It was the Maddox, and I sent it to the vault instead of ordering it to my house. And so I had to wait a bit longer, a couple weeks, for it to get processed and into the vault. But when it was there, all I had to do was pay $6 for them to ship it to my house. And so it's a I use the vault sort of as a pass through, but I don't necessarily use it as a secure, facility. Now, so positives and negatives. Positives are your cards are safe there, presumably insured and um, inaccessible to the general public. Um, if you live in an area maybe with it's like a high crime area, or maybe you have, I don't know, a dog that you think will chew up your cards or something like that, and you maybe need an option outside your home, the vault's a great resource. And if you don't want to go to a bank and have a safe deposit box or whatever it is, I mean, the reason I typically don't use them is because I look at my cards so frequently, and I'm assuming that most people who don't use a vault, that's the reason. We like the tactile feel. And even though I probably look at scans of my cards more often than I look at the physical, just because I look at the scans so much, it's still, I like knowing that the physical is there. Now, when I'm done consolidating for this current card, I'm going to have to give some kind of consideration to perhaps a safe deposit box at a local bank. I'm probably not going to send it to a vault, though, just because it sort of defeats the purpose for me of having the card. But I understand why some people especially those who maybe treat cards as assets, like high end assets, would want to keep their cards at the vault, especially if you have a ton of, high dollar cards and, somebody knows it. You don't want to get robbed. So I think there are positives and negatives, and it just sort of depends on what you're looking for out of your collecting, and maybe sort of if you have some high dollar or high value cards in your collection.
Yeah, I can't really add much to that. I don't use vaults. I actually didn't even think about the PSA workaround until you mentioned it there from eBay. So I think if I do buy a card off eBay where I want to save on sales tax, I'll probably do that from now on. So I appreciate that. But other than that, I don't really have much to add to it other than I need to start thinking about. I like keeping my cards at home like you do, and thumbing through the boxes and going through them and sorting them. And I just like to see my cards because I have them out regularly. But I need to start thinking about some way to maybe, with certain cards, maybe a safety deposit box or something like that. I think that would be the way to go because I could just drive right down the street and go get them if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Bring them
Yeah.
back
Now, so
home.
exactly. And some people may have a safe in their home, which is certainly a good thing. But even if you buy a fireproof safe, it's only fireproof up to a certain duration of time. So if your fireproof safe is fireproof for 30 minutes, but your house is burning for an hour, like it's not going to do anything, not going to do you much good, right? But that's not to say a safe is worthless. Obviously, it can guard against other, intrusions or kids or whatever that may be snooping through your stuff. So, um, yeah, just there's multiple considerations out there for everybody. Okay, last one, just a brief one. I answered this for him, but I thought it would just be just good to bring up. So he asked about the 1997 SP Authentic profiles die cuts out of 100. So just to clarify, there are die cuts that are not numbered out of 100, and so another, like the Prestige Gold, make sure you check the back. But he asked about why some are handwritten stamps and some are machine stamped. And so for the machine stamped, it'll say, 34 of 100, that full thing is stamped versus the out of 100 just being stamped. And then the first part of the serial, uh, handwritten. So, Brian, can you just give a quick clarification on why that's the case?
Yeah, the stamped ones, the machine stamped ones were pack pulled. The handwritten ones were replacement copies for damaged cards. And from what I understand from that set is that it was screwed up in manufacturing, right? Like both the numbered ones and the base ones weren't supposed to be die cut, right? It was supposed to
Mm-hmm.
just be the ones out of 100 were supposed to be die cut, and the other ones were supposed to just be
Correct.
full cards, but they screwed up in printing them. So basically, I mean, if you look at them, they're like identical, just one's numbered
Yep.
and one's not, which for me, it takes away from the parallel because you wouldn't even know it's a parallel until you look at the back. It's like the same as the base.
Exactly. Yep. I was going to say that to me, they're indistinguishable. I don't know if someone knows a distinguishing feature of them from the front. But yeah, always flip them over. And also PSA does grade both the handwritten and the machine stamp serials. Obviously, if you want the peace of mind, go for I guess the machine stamp. Okay. Okay, so for our main segment, we wanted to talk a little bit about, before we get into 2025 resolutions, just look back briefly on 2024 resolutions. I know we did a 2024 recap, but this is specifically about the resolutions we set for ourselves at the beginning of the year. I had five. I'll just run through them real quick and then you tell me yours. So the first one I had was attend the 2024 National, which I did. The second one was finish at least three Patriots 90s team sets. I did not finish any of them. It was actually really, there was very few that surfaced during this year. And I was about two away from almost all of them, and they just weren't coming up. Obviously, I've had to cut them. I have the 98, 99 platinum dimes and the 24 carats. Those are not finished. So number two did not come to fruition. Number three was add a top five overall PC card. I think I did that with the Bagwell Gem Masters, so I'm pleased there. Number four was try to make more trades. That is still remains really difficult because there's just aligning what you want with what someone has and hoping that they want what you have can be difficult. So I made a couple. I made one with Roundtree, and I think I made a few, at the national, but it's still something I would like to do a little bit more. And then number five was don't add any more player PCs. At the time, I had added Jason Kidd, and Gary Payton. Both of those are gone. So I cut a lot this year. So I think this mostly came true. I had said goodbye to Corey Dillon, recently to Guerrero. Um, so I don't think I had Pedro Bagwell Favre all back before this year. So I don't think I added any. So I did. I'd say I give myself three and a half on the trade. So three and a half out of five, which is not too shabby. So what about you? What were your goals going into 2024, and do you feel like you checked those off?
Yeah, I had more of informal goals than I guess your formal five list. But the main thing I was trying to do at the end of 2023, going into 24, I was really starting to get into kind of figuring out how I was going to do my Rogers PC because I waited this long to start collecting them because up until I guess he went after he left the Packers and went to the Jets. His card prices, and then he got hurt too. His card prices
Mm-hmm.
seemed prime for me to start jumping in. So I waited because his prices were kind of out of reach at the time for me. All of the years that he played, just because I was collecting other things and just I didn't want to spend the money on. Him. Then I felt and there was value in his cards, and I started to get into the Prism Gold stuff right at the end of 2023, going into 24. So I wanted to expand that gold run. So I decided to attack the Prism Gold and the Optic Gold out of 10 run for him. And I wanted to make more progress on that. But I already picked up the 2015 and 2013 Prisms in 2023. So I didn't really, I guess, if you look at did I meet my goal, I just posted one recently at 2021. So I did pick up, and I actually have another one coming too. I actually did pick up two this year, but in reality, like I didn't make the progress that I was planning on. I thought that I would get more than just two that year, or this past year. So I guess if I have to count that as like a failure, I guess it would be a semi failure. But I guess with the way my collection is going, I've my main goal was to just kind of narrow down my focus. At the time going into 2024, I was still collecting some vintage team sets and runs, and I'm still kind of doing that. I'm gonna start doing that more with the Packers, but I was buying a lot of I was buying like a lot of Hank Aaron stuff and a lot of United, a lot of vintage players too, and it was kind of distracting me from really spending all my resources on like Favre and Rodgers and like the Packer stuff that was more expensive. So going into 24, I was going to try to narrow that down. Um, I cut out vintage almost completely, other than like the Brewer vintage team sets and some of the Packers. So I guess that was a win. I got more focused. I got even more focused this year than I thought I was going to get, which has led to I'm really happy with where my collection is. So I guess that was a success, getting more focused with my player lanes and my PCs. Um, the other thing I want to do is really expand my Antonio Freeman collection. I just recently, going into 2024, I picked up the PMG Green Freeman, and I wanted to really get more. And I did pick up a number of other ones. I think, the entire Essential Credentials run of him this year. I got some other bigger cards. I'm drawing a blank on it right now. Oh, a PMG. I got the 99 PMG of his, and then a handful of other nice Freemans this year. So I did expand that collection. So that was a win. And then I did want to. My goal was to finish the Braun, Bowman, and Topps Chrome and Finest Gold base card run out of 50, the Gold Refractor run. To some people that aren't Brewer fans or don't care about Braun, that seems like you would think, oh God, you could probably just go on eBay and just like buy them all in one swoop. Well, I've been trying to get them all for like 3 years, and I'm still, I think, like 9 short or something between all the three different companies. So I made a lot of progress on it for sure this past year. I bought like probably at least like 10 to 15 of them. A lot of them came up, but I didn't finish them like I thought. I thought it would be a lot easier. So still working on that. So I guess I'm like 2 for 4. I guess.
That's
Oh,
so
yeah. I mean, I guess I'm 2 for 4 on those. I also started buying the Packers Prism Gold cards. So
hmm
going into this year, I wanted to not just get the Rodgers, but expand on the Packers in general and get more Prism Gold. I kind of cut the Prism Gold stuff in general for Packers, and I'm really more so just focusing on like the finites of like key All Pros or bigger players from the Prism era of Packers. So I've kind of shifted from golds to finites, which is a good thing. It's just different than what my goal was. So I guess I'm like, however you want to look at, like 2 out of 4 or maybe 2 out of 5, something like that.
that's strong. I mean, that's really good. I think if you can hit just a couple things that you want to do each year, you should be pretty satisfied, because there are so many unexpected things that come up during the year. So before we get into our personal 2025 resolutions, you had actually put up a story soliciting people to send their hobby resolutions for 2025. So can you go through some of the ones that we received?
Yeah, I posted asking for some resolutions. I didn't get a ton of them. I know Brett from Stacking Slabs, I think, posted something. He was getting a lot of them too. So maybe he stole our thunder a little bit, but some of the ones that it was fun reading. I'd say that as a joke. It was fun reading some of the ones that he posted on his story from people that sent in. So that was really cool. Some of the ones I'll read off some of the ones that we did get. At Go Blue Cards said he wants to display my PC so friends and family can enjoy the art. I think that's really cool.
That's cool.
I've been trying to work on a way to display some things down in my office area, and then when I finish the rest of my basement, like the bar area and stuff, I want to maybe put some cards in our in-wall display cases and that. I'm not crazy about having more expensive stuff kind of like out where it's easily accessible for people that come over, but I have in-wall display cases that I can lock. So if I can throw a few cards in there, I think they look cool to mix those in. So I've been trying to find ways to display as well. I think that's a really cool plan. There are some really nice wall frames and stuff that'll, PSA branded ones that are really expensive, but they're really nice. And there's also some ones on Amazon that you can get, like the Pinzoni company, I think, makes one. Another one from the Barnett collection. That's stacking funds to chase the Babe. So I'm assuming that he's looking for some Babe Ruth cards, which is
Mm,
really cool.
interesting. Yeah.
Maybe some Gaudy Ruths.
Right.
Our friend Act Drake's PC. He says, "Be more patient. If the right cards aren't there, don't just buy other cards to fill the void." I think that's
Hmm.
a resolution that most of us share.
99% of people listening probably can
Yeah,
feel
I
that
mean,
pretty hard.
if I look back and you look back even to like how your collection's changed over a year, I mean, what we think right now our PC is going to look like it could change significantly. But I think what he's even getting at too is like even in our collecting lanes, we'll just see like a card that we really think is cool, fits in the lane, you get it. Like you mentioned the grand finale, right? Like you think like, oh, I want
Hmm.
the grand finale, the max, and then you kind of get in
Right.
like it's not doing it for me, and you sell it. Like maybe just
Right.
pump the brakes a little bit and just really focus on the lists. So I think that's
Yeah.
a cool
I,
one.
before you go into on to the next one, it's like the worst thing that a collector can have is money. It's like, when we sell a card, when you have to, it's the most dangerous thing. Like if let's say you buy a card for 500 and someone offers you 2 grand, like, I really like this card. You take the 2 grand, then you spend it on shit you don't even want or need. Right. And then you're more unhappy than when you just had the $500 card. So
Yeah,
I hear what Drake's coming from.
yeah. At Maze Sports says gift a card on somebody's want list, which is awesome.
Mm.
We spoke about this, the paying it forward thing. Andy was like he was giving out early Christmas presents to us this past year, and I guess maybe something on my list this year is to maybe gift or find a card that somebody really wants and get it to them, or gift something to them as well. It feels good to do that. It's like giving gifts on Christmas. You can do this all year long, and there's nobody more appreciative, I think, in general, and really any collecting space. But when a collector truly gets something gifted like that to him, something that a card or an item that they collect, especially if it's something that they've been looking for. So if you have an
Hmm.
opportunity to do that and you have the resources to do that, not saying go out and buy a bunch of cards for people, but just if you have the
Right.
resources to do that, that's really nice.
A good way to do that is if you stumble upon something for cheap, like in a dollar box, but it's worth $100. Just pay it forward. Now, I'd like to do that, but I hope someone isn't wanting a bag while Gym Master's out there. That'd be a little tough to pay part with.
Irish at Irish_sports cards_21. They write, try and not be so rigid and strict with my lanes that I miss out on cool cards. So it's like the opposite of what we talked about. We're trying to be
Mm.
we're trying to be more rigid and tying up and not stray off like Drake was mentioning. And he's saying, um, or she, I don't know, wants to be
It's
more. Is it he?
Yeah, so Aaron is saying that. I just probably can add a little bit of to. So he's relatively new into the '90s. So I think that's it's so different based on where you are in your kind of your collecting journey. Like, so being new into '90s, you're in that exploratory phase. So I think that's where he's coming from with that resolution.
That makes sense. So just, I guess, Aaron, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you are. You're gonna learn, like, we all started off like that. I did too. When you explore like a new area, you're just gonna start buying stuff, and that's, we talked about, it's like the best way to explore sets. Like it's a really good thing because in the end, like, what's the worst thing that's gonna happen within reason is you have to sell the cards that you don't like and you just focus on something, but you don't know what you like until you actually get them. So, or starting off, it's better to just buy stuff like that. We're talking about narrowing our focus and being more rigid just because we've gone through over the years the mix of buying and selling, and it gets old after a while. Cards GT, Gino, our guy, our Charles Woodson guy, he says, and again, he mentioned this on our show. He's looking for the 1999 Don Russ Elite Status Charles Woodson out of 24. He mentioned that on our podcast episode. He's still looking for it. Can't find it. It's a ghost card. Those are really cool. If you know any inroads to finding that Charles Woodson out of 24 against the 99 Donruss Elite Status Charles Woodson out of 24, message Gino Cards GT. Message him anyway. He's a great person to talk to and has one of my favorite collections. Last but not least, at collect_4_fun23. writes, "Be 1/1000th the collector that Andy is," meaning buy thy baby card. So he gets a shout out on here, and he's not even on our show. So I had to throw that in for Andy. But this person wants to be just like Andy. I think we all kind of do, don't we?
Well, I want to be 1/1000th of Andy.
That's
He's too
okay.
much, so I'll take 1,000th of him. I'll take just tiny
I agree.
percentage.
I would like
uh,
to be 1/1000th as well. No more.
that's right. Yeah, no more, no more. All right, so let's do our own 2025 resolutions. We each came up with five. We'll just go back and forth, and just so that we're kind of shifting. Because obviously you have different collecting lanes. So my first one was to finish my Pedro Martinez collection, which I've never really finished a PC. A lot of people talk about finishing it. I think I can finish it by getting the 99 Precious Metal Gems and the 98 Super Rave, both of which were on my top 7 cards to find in 2024. So going into that year, that was, I think I hit uh, maybe 4 of them or something like that. I think 98 Favre PMG, Pedro 24 Carat, Vlad Molten Metal Titanium Fusion. There was one other I think I found. But anyway, those two were on my list in 2024 and I did not find them. And I think with those um, in my collection, I've got one I just traded for and one coming back from PSA, and I think that should round it out for me. Now there may be some like smaller binder stuff that I would buy or just mag up, but for the graded PC, I think that's a reasonable thing to find 2 cards. But again, I tried to find them last year and couldn't do it, or just got unlucky or missed out on auctions, what have you. So um, that's my number one. What was yours?
Isn't it kind of satisfying though to be maybe a couple cards away from feeling like you completed something though? A big collection. I mean, it's
Yeah,
Pedro too. It's not like it's
yeah.
common.
Yeah, there's like obviously we love the chase and you kind of want it, but there's sort of at some point like the frustration sets in a little bit, right? We're like, why can't I just land these? And then I'm sure when I do land them, I'll be like, why can't I have something else to chase? But it will open up other avenues for me to put the Pedro collection aside and say, all right, I've got that and I'm keeping it. There it is. It's staying there, and sort of becomes like an untouchable. It's like a tenured professor or something, like you can't get rid of it at that point.
Would you be like the type of person though when you put that to the side and just think like maybe I would like add a card once a year or every once in a while to that collection? Like if I found a cool one, just add it, even though it's not on this
Yeah,
list.
yeah, I think so. I mean, I've been pretty like in terms of going through his stuff, trying to figure out what I would like. I've owned a 99 platinum medallion and I've owned, a few other cards from that time period. I have decided like that I originally had the 98, obviously I had the 98 PMG, I had the 96 Mirror Gold on my list, I had the Red Crusade, but then I realized having the 98 PMG, I didn't really care for him in the Expos jersey. It just like wasn't doing it for me. Some people might, it's like, Favre in a Jets jersey, I guess, for you, right? Like it didn't really do it for me, even though he was very good with the Expos. So I wouldn't like completely preclude the idea, but I also know that I'm not a big fan of like the early 2000s top Spaceball stuff, and that's kind of, or Finest, and that's kind of, the Skybox stuff kind of takes an end, like the best stuff takes an end in that 2001 period. So, um, wouldn't say no, but I don't think that it would be something I would actively look for.
What about superfractors? If you came across superfractor,
Wouldn't do it. I mean,
no.
if it 99 Gym Masters, I would probably try to get. I probably wouldn't go for a legacy masterpiece or anything like that. It just wouldn't be worth the price to me.
Okay. Mine are in no particular order. I guess not one doesn't outweigh the other. They're all about equal importance to me. But completing the Clay Finite Packers run, the Prism Finite run that I'm working on, he has 6 Packers Prism Finites. I get actually he's got 5 Finites and 1 black Pulsar, but you get him the base set
Right,
black
Black 101s. Yeah.
black 101s from the Prism set. I need really 3 more. I got 2 here. I got one that's on its way. and I need three more. I know where two of them are. One of them is kind of disappeared. It was actually a collector had the entire 2016 Rainbow, including the finite, and I believe from what I heard, he passed away. And those cards, nobody really knows where those cards went. So I'm sure the top priority when he passed away wasn't to secure the 2016 clay rainbow prism rainbow. So I mean, they could have went to a thrift store for all I know. But hopefully that 2016 pops up at some point. But knowing where the other two are that I need is good. So if I got down, I would say right now I would adjust that a little bit. If I got down to just needing that missing 2016 by the end of this year, that would be good. So if I was able to get the 2012 and the 2018 by the end of this year, and then just be waiting for that 2016 to pop up somewhere, I'd be happy.
That's tough, man. Three 101s in a year. Maybe if you could just get one, that would be a pretty big accomplishment. Those are
Well,
so. But
I know
knowing
where
where,
two of them
yeah,
are. So
would those people make them available?
yeah, the 2012 will be available for the right price. I kind of know what the price
Yeah.
is. It's going to be a lot, but it'll be available. The other one isn't available, but it's going to be available when I do need it. I could probably get it from the person. I'm friends with them, so I
Okay.
mean they're
Right.
playing hard to
Right.
get right now, but I got stuff they want to, so
There
I'll
you
make
go.
it work.
All right. My number two. Incorporate collecting cards from an era other than the late 90s. So most of my collection is geared to the 96 to 2000 time frame. And so I'd like to start collecting from a different era. And that doesn't necessarily mean like the 1970s. I don't think I would go before 96 just because you're getting into the, high pop base cards. I never had much of an interest in vintage. So it would be like modern, 2020s when I got back in to cards, really. And so it was 2020 products that I was really interested in. So there's like almost like a short term nostalgia kind of there. So that's the probable avenue. Another one was like that 2005 to 2011 type of time period. I like those finest products. I've come around on a lot of them. And like I had that Calvin Johnson mosaic refractor. And like had I had a PC of that time frame, I probably would have kept that card. But because I didn't, it felt so out of place in my collection, which was all 90s. Um, I let it go. Unfortunately, I let it go to a great collector, and I needed to let it go because I had to. But I kind of like, well, it didn't fit, but collections always typically start with one card, so maybe that could have been the one card I start that time frame with, but I just wasn't ready. So I think I'm going to try to do that early this year, nowish. So that's my one of my goals is to kind of break out of that sort of hyperfixation on the 96 to 2000 time period.
Do you this is how I think of this, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but do you think of when you're starting like a new PC lane, like this modern stuff, more modern, the ultra modern stuff, do you feel like you got to go buy not just like one card, but you got to get like maybe a handful, so then you feel like, okay, I started a PC? Because if you get like the one, you're like, I got to either you got to run and get more so you feel like you're making progress, otherwise you feel like it's just kind of an outlier. Or do you think that way, or is that just me?
Yeah. Yeah. And full disclosure, I've actually already started this resolution. I
Okay.
just didn't want to reveal it necessarily, like to what degree. But, like, yes, that's been the approach so far, which is to come up. I mean, I've already gotten set quite a few, but like yeah, having one would make me probably have second thoughts about doing it. And so you kind of go, and it doesn't have to, it's not all expensive. That's one of the things that I realized was coming back into it, into the ultra modern era, and not, if you're not focusing on like high end or like star QBs, stuff can be pretty reasonable, and seeing, and part of that is the, like, all these sales I've made from the consolidation period, like just kind of no name 90s guys selling for like 200-300 bucks, like commons and PMG sets, and so like you can actually get pretty cool cards for $200-300 in the ultra modern. So that's kind of intrigued me. a bit. But yeah, I agree with you. Like it's not just a one-off thing. It has to be several.
Yeah, I agree with that because I mean, I don't really need to go in depth with this. We all know that I buy the Prism stuff, but if you look at Prism being, you know, they're the player's best, I guess, cards in my opinion. You know, I think a lot of people feel this way. Their best cards, you know, as rookies, and you can pick up golds out of 10. So you're getting a rookie card or a second, third year card out of 10. A gold refractor looks really nice. They're nice cards. Um, for a few $100. And then you mentioned, you know, I think we talked about this earlier. Like when I was trying to do a lot of the Packers team sets, I'm paying like upwards of $400 for Dorsey Levin's PMG that's beat to hell. It's like
Hmm.
just because it's a
Yeah.
Packer and it's a PMG, so
Right.
it does get annoying sometimes. I mean, we love the '90s, but you do find value, and if you're nostalgic for some of these players and that, it does make sense. And that's I look at like the Clay Matthews stuff and like the Devontae
Hmm.
Adams stuff that I recently started picking up, and it's dirt cheap compared to other 101s even, or dirt cheap
Right.
compared to like a '90s common player. So we start to see the shift in pricing when certain outside individuals come into certain areas of the hobby and they start jacking up prices and pumping up things. These are it's the ripple effect, and
Right.
collectors pivot generally to different areas. Um, so number two for me was continue making progress on my Favre top 25 list. So I recently, I guess within the last few months, I made a very firm list. It contains 20 Favre that I consider like my favorite cards of his. Some are very rare and tough to get. Some are out of hundreds. I think the only unnumbered one I have on there is the Golden Boss Refractor, but still very tough to get. And then I got 5 101s. They're all super fractors on that list. So I'm trying to make more progress on that list. Obviously, I made progress recently with that playoff prestige. I didn't think that was a really tough card to find, so I didn't really. I had that one kind of on the back burner. I didn't think that was going to pop up, and then it did. So just really make some progress on those.
Yeah, that's I think you'll that's a good I mean it's a big list. It's a relatively big list compared to like looking for one of one. So you should definitely that's probably the one you're gonna make the biggest dent on, I would say, this year is finding some of those.
Yeah.
Um my number three, oh yeah, this is find the Jeff Bagwell 98 credentials now, which was another one on my 2024 list. That's number to 17. I don't. I've seen it. It's funny. I think this was in like Sept. Well, when was it? Maybe it was like earlier this year or even late last year. I can't remember. PSA did like a story or something. I don't know if it's. I don't think it was a post. I think it was a story like just graded. You know, they do those just graded, and like that card was on there, and I was like, you don't always. I mean, they do some '90s on the just graded, but that was an odd one. You don't see much Bagwell, um, and like I didn't think to screen capture it or screenshot it, I should say, or like message on it. Or, not that PSA would have known necessarily who had it or would have told me, I should say. But that one is one that is very difficult to find. Obviously, those low credentials numbered under 20, especially of a Hall of Famer, very difficult. So that's one I would pay up for because it's been on my list for quite a while now. As soon as I got into wanting to get back into baseball, and Bagwell was an easy choice. That was like one of the first ones I put on the list because it was like, okay, great set. I love that set, and the now is so exclusive. So if anybody knows where one is or someone who has one, please let me know. I'd love to try to find one of those. Maybe not right this second. It's not a great time for buying one of those, but in maybe 6 months or something like that. But even just knowing where one is now, right? You could plant the seed. So, yeah, that's my number three.
Number three for me is something I mentioned earlier, and it's been a chase for 3 years now, but it's finally finished the Braun Gold Refractor run for Bowman, Tops, and Finest. And there's 36 of the base golds the true golds, not the shimmer waves, whatever. It's the true golds out of 50. Uh, I have 28 of the 36, so relatively close. I'm 8 away. I have pretty much every one of the finest. I'm missing the 2013. Um, the biggest one that I'm still trying to get it, I'm being stubborn. There's a 2005 Bowman Chrome, the draft auto, beautiful card. It's probably my second favorite card of his, other than the Super Fractor I own. But I love this card. It's been sitting on eBay for like a year. I've messaged the guy. I actually have his number. I text back and forth with him and check in. He just will not budge on price really, and I'm just being stubborn and won't pay because I know it's out of 50. I know there's other copies, but it's just at some point, like if I made the decision, like if I get the rest and I just need that one and it's still sitting there and he'll give it to me for the price that he told me off eBay, I'm probably just going to do it and just get it done. And it's an awesome looking card. It's just that he's asking for basically double what I think it's worth, but whatever. If it gets to the point where I need to finish it, then I'm just going to do it. But my goal, if I had to say there's one thing, that's like the goal that's the one I need to get done this year. Cause I want to, like you said, I want to put that to the side because I have this binder going with like a bunch of Key Brewer gold refractors from Topps, Bowman, and Finest, like all of theirs, like all the runs. And that one it's got the most, number one. It's got the most cards in it. And number two, it's like my favorite player. So I need to get it done. So it's sitting there in the binder with the other players that are almost done as well. Some are done. And I just want to finish that one off. So it's been irritating me for 3 years.
Fingers crossed. My number 4, reacquire my Brett Favre 24 karat gold. That I had to originally, when I started this consolidation process, I was trying to basically keep that in my bag while Gem Masters and just sell everything else. And that was sort of the premise upon which I made the decision to not do the consolidation in the first place. I didn't want to just have 3 cards basically. And so once I started like running the numbers and stuff, I said, well, if I did sell the 24 karat, here's what I think I can get for it. That would allow me to keep, 5 or 6 really nice cards, like basically my whole Pedro PC. And so I was kind of like, I think I'd have a better shot at, even though there's only 24 of them, you've got one, Justin's got one. And then my copy, like I think, and then that other guy, Poppy Joe has one. I think it'd be easier to try to get one of those back rather than get like my entire Pedro collection back, especially because there's a 24 karat gold in that, a legacy out of 20, credentials out of 23. So that'd be pretty difficult. And that was my favorite card. But I knew I had to sell it to make this work. And so, I do want to get it back at some point this year. I think, I can make that happen. It can't be anytime soon, but, at some point, I think there's a way to do that. So that is definitely a high priority for me, and that's really like the big one that I want to reacquire.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, I think today, and we've been talking about this. I know it was probably tough for you to dump all those cards to go after the one that you're going, but it is like of the ones that you decide to move. I think it'd be nice to be able to get those back on top of what you're getting. Like it's a nice,
Right.
you're going to be at a nice starting point, number one. And number two, it's nothing. It's not like you're getting rid of 101. So they're all
Yeah.
things that you could get back. I think your Pedro PC would be closer to like a 101 together than that Favre 24 karat. So I think you
Right.
made the right decision with that. Now you can actually say like you're really close to completing what you want from the Pedro PC. So it's like, you get the satisfaction of completing something this year and
Yeah.
then kind of starting fresh with the Favre stuff, really.
Yeah. That's kind of my thought too, which is like, it's just, it was a little bit more doable when I could tell myself that I could start a new collection with like 8 cards versus 3. And that was kind of like the selling point to me, and it just going through the exercise of it and really finding out what you really like and really don't, because there's plenty of cards I thought I really really wouldn't surrender, under any other circumstances. And now I don't know that I will get them all back. I mean, there's no way I could financially do it, but even still, the desire isn't necessarily there for all of them, but obviously for the far of it, it is. So, what's your number four?
Maybe make significant progress in my Rogers Prism and Optic Gold PC. So I have four right now of his 11 Packers. I'm just looking for the Packers prisms. So I have four of the 11 Packers prisms, and then I have one just the 2020 Optic. The Optic are really tough to find too. I mean, it's crazy. I wouldn't think that. I think what the first year was it 2016 Optic, I think, or 2017.
Yeah, that's correct. 2016.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so finding that one is like impossible. I've never seen the gold Rogers. So that's going to be tough, but it's going to be a challenge. It's not something I'm trying to rush through. It's not like the other ones. That's why I just put make significant progress. I don't even know what that is, but like if I picked up a few key cards, I'd consider that significant progress, because some of the ones I still need, though I have probably the second and third toughest ones to find. It's really like I got the 2012 is out there. That's a big dollar card. And then some of his other ones like the 2016, 17, the 20, they're tough to get to. So if I could get maybe some of those mid-range ones, and I'd be happy. Maybe find an Optic or two.
It's good. I mean, it seems like, we've talked about this. You've done, and I've done the same thing with like player PCs and the ones I even talked about earlier that I shut down. And I know you had like a moment where you considered Maddox and Terrell Davis, but now you seem to have been like, all right, Favre, Rogers, Braun, and then like obviously the Clay stuff too. But for player PC
Like
purposes, more
Freeman.
extensive,
Yeah,
right? Freeman, yeah,
Freeman, I'll go pretty deep. I'm on Green to a
yeah,
point, and then all my Brewers, I count like the Brewers as like a player PC, because it's
okay,
like I just
yeah.
go nuts with the Brewer stuff. But like the team sets mainly for that. But yeah, like what you're to your point, yeah, it's I really narrowed it down to like the Favre, Rogers, Freeman. I guess I'm on Green. I go deep into like the Ryan Braun stuff too, I guess, and
Yeah.
Adams like 101s, but I only have a couple of those. And when you're doing 101s, like it's way more stressful. Because like even with a gold, like if I missed like a Rogers gold that I need, I wouldn't, it would suck if it was on eBay and like I missed it, but I wouldn't have like a complete meltdown because there's 9 other ones generally. With a 101, like if a finite Adams became available and I missed it, I'd be kind of pissed because you get like one shot at them generally.
Yeah. Right. But what I like about this is that you can kind of tell the story of basketball aside, Milwaukee sports over the last, 25 years, 30
Yeah.
years, with your collection from sort of those early Favre days up until, even now, well, not now, but like 2022, right? Rogers being there. And
Yep.
so it seems like it's got a pretty cohesive vision to it. My final one, find the joy in putting together small side PCs of other players like Jason Kendall, Brian Giles, maybe others, that I can find some nice cards out of 100 or 99 that I don't want to spend $500 on a Brian Giles card, but if I can find, like I said, I got those 399 legacies for $28. So if I can get in that sandbox where it's like $50 and under for these types of cards, it's kind of rewarding to be able to do that, and it kind of pulls you back because it's really easy to get into like the way we do and a lot of our friends do, which is like the super rare stuff. Right? It's not cheap. It's actually very costly, and coinciding with the pursuit of those cards can be stress and can be like, the consolidation process can be kind of grind you down a bit. And so when you can do these small PCs on the side of these, like, maybe people say no name players, but all stars, right? It kind of brings you back to like the childhood collecting, which was like we didn't care that much about, high end value or whatever, but you could still get these guys from like these sets you like. So I think that's a really good For me, it kind of balances out the sort of the high end with the quote unquote lower end, but it's still really enjoyable.
I'm glad that you said that. It is. There's nothing brings me more joy than like doing the Brewers binder stuff and like that gold refractor binder of the Brewers cards and things like that. Because, and even Antonio Freeman to some extent, a lot of his cards are cheap. So the ones I pick up, but there's nothing that brings me more joy than picking those cards up. I mean, I find a lot of joy in picking up like a $10 Ryan Braun gold refractor when I can check it off the list, and when I put the thing in the binder and it's like completing the run of a player, whoever it is, whether it's like Carlos Gomez for like $4, like getting his run or his gold run, or like finding like a John Axford gold refractor, just like cool cards. It brings you back to childhood collecting, and it's like the joy of collecting. So some listening might be like, well, why do you even mess with like the higher end rare stuff if it's so stressful? It costs a lot of money. It's financially stressing. You got to consolidate, do all this. Why do you do that? Well, I mean, it's for me, like I'll just speak for myself. For me, it's part of like, it's part borderline addiction. You get not addiction in a way where like, I mean, maybe there are addiction to cards, but it's more for me like the the thrill and trying to build a specific PC that I know is going to be really tough. And it's like my Favre thing, the 25 cards. That's not my goal for like this year. That's like a lifelong 25 card collection. Like hopefully by the end of my time here, I can put together that 25 card collection. It's nothing that I'm going to complete in the next couple of years, 10, 15 years probably. It's just like a goal, and it's like very rewarding to cross a card off that list. When you start buying cards and selling and finding out what you actually like, you start to lose the thrill in certain cards and certain types of cards where like it's the next thrill. It's like a thrill seeking thing, kind of an
Mm-hmm.
addiction to like an adrenaline rush when one of those cards pops up. There's really nothing like it. As rewarding as it is putting together a binder and like these smaller PC players, that's fun. That's like childhood collecting. This is more like ultimate thrill seeking, as much as thrill seeking can be with a card, but like finding
Right.
those grails like that, like you always need the next level. And that's why, at least me, that's why I go after some of these, like the super fractors or the finites or the, some of the other rare 90s stuff, things like that.
Right.
My last one. So number 5 for me is to pick, on top of that, it kind of leads into is to pick up any significant Packers or Brewers 101s that come up. So I just recently I picked up some newer superfractors of a Brewers player, a current one right now. But I do the same thing with Yelich. So maybe I could throw like Yelich's name in there. Fine. I'm looking for any superfractors from the base sets of Topps, Bowman or Finest of Christian Yelich. Obviously Ryan Braun. There's 2006 Prince Fielder. Mainly superfractors for the Brewers. That's really all I'm looking for moving forward for the 101s. And then for the Packers, obviously, it's like the significant players of like the finite, the Prism finite or optic gold vinyl 101s for Packers moving forward. Obviously, if I could find any of the 2000s like Favre superfractors off that list, I'm looking for those. But like, just any key Packers or Brewers moving forward. Like I picked up that Ricky Weeks recently, and things like there's players that are nostalgic to me, and I think they're really cool cards, especially the superfractors and the finite. So if I run across any of those, just continue to kind of pick those off. And if I could add, really, you can't count on a 101, but if I could add any of those to my list this year, it would be a success for that.
Yeah. I mean, we've got some tall orders ahead of us for 2025. It sounds like there'll be a lot of cards. If you guys are listening and put together a list, send them. Maybe we can read some on the next show as well. Um, I hope everyone out there had a great or is having a great New Year's so far. We will be back next week, as always. Going to try to make it a. We're not going to be doing too many breaks. This was just a one-off for the holiday, so we'll be back with more collector conversations, set examinations, and then more episodes like this, where maybe we're just talking about what we're looking to do, maybe the status of certain pursuits, etc. So we will see you soon.